I'm looking forward to hearing it. I applaud him for his courage already for deciding to try this, and let's see how it goes. Jeff, off the cuff, speaking about food.
Fellow Toastmaster and honored guest. Food. Now, what about food? Does anybody know anything about food? Everybody here like food? Yeah, well, let's hope so. I mean, because try going without food for too long and life is kind of miserable. Now, when I was a kid, I had a toothsome, I can't think of the word I'm thinking also. Basically, everybody knew me as a great eater. I used to, of course, when I was running in my service station and doing other things, usually working 15 hours a day, I had a great appetite. I could sit down at the table and eat 2 breakfasts. Actually, usually I went in the restaurant in the morning and had 2 breakfasts. I would order French toast, I would order oatmeal, I would order a pastry, and of course coffee and orange juice, or maybe I'd order a waffle and eggs and bacon, because I had no problem. I'd get my girlish figure the whole time. But food is actually a great experience. And sometimes people think they get this guilt trip about food. But really, we have to be careful about how we eat. Of course, we talk about our healthy eating habits are important. But the thing is, food is such an important part of our life that you want to take advantage of it in many ways. Of course, we heard about Mongolian barbecue today. If you haven't tried that, you need to try not only her version, but even the American or gringo version, right? But I've had the pleasure, of course, eating in several different places in the world, and I don't avoid eating unusual foods. So, for instance, I was in Japan and went to this what's called a kaiseki dinner. This is where you go into it would look like a traditional, ancient Japanese house, and you sit down on the floor, and you're at this table that sits high off the floor, and you get all these traditional Japanese meals fed to you. And it's in multiple courses, and you can order the 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 of the main courses and all kind of interesting food. So we're talking sea snails, sea slugs, octopus, sea urchin, sushi, all these wonderful things. Now, of course, my wife and daughter said, well, they'll just have the minimum. But I said, I'll have all 12. Give me all 12. Some of the stuff was, we'll say it's interesting. But the one thing I will say about Japanese food is that it's most of it, how many people have had Japanese food? Okay, would you say it's not really savory and thick with aromas and flavors, but very delicate. You have to take the time, put on the tongue and taste it. And many foods can be like that. Or on the other hand, you might get French food, which would have all these sauces, Béarnaise sauce, and the thick aromas, and that also is something that is very savory. Now, I grew up, and I had a Swedish grandmother. Of course, then I had a German grandmother. Talk about interesting foods, thick, heavy. Some of them weren't as savory, but they were tasty. We had these things that were called. My Swedish grandmother made things called pulp. It was basically a potato dumpling. She took potatoes, ground them up, put flour, and then put salt pork in the middle and boiled them. And these things were heavy, heavy, heavy. In fact, my dad and uncles, when they were in high school, called them lead balls. Because you put them in your stomach and boom. Yeah. The max I could ever eat as a kid, my record was 3.5 of these things, along with everything else. They're about as big as your fist, right? So, but that was something that I grew up with. And of course, one of the things that I made a pact when I got married was my wife had to be a good cook. And that sounds ridiculous. Chauvinistic. Seriously, that was part of my life. I loved eating so much, and I said, that's was important to me. And I did. My wife is phenomenal at cooking. She's got great taste. Now, she doesn't love cooking like some people do. My one daughter watches the cooking channel endlessly, and she loves to get in the kitchen and do that. My wife likes to cook because she wants, of course, feed me well, but also because she enjoys the experience. We go out to dinner. There's this one restaurant we go to. That's this Italian. What is it? They call it. Can't remember what anyway, it's got meat and sausage and tomatoes and onions, and the way they do this, every time she gets it, can't you just smell it? Just the aroma. She wants to take that in. Okay, so that's important to her. She appreciates all the spices. The other thing about eating is, where do you eat? Why do talk about breaking bread with each other. It's one thing to invite somebody over to your house and share a meal. You take that time, the experience that goes with a good bottle of wine, you enjoy that. If you pair the wine properly, it's really interesting if you've not done that with your food, if you are a wine drinker, is to pair the food properly. So you pick the right wine to go with the food, it's amazing the flavors. Recently, we were having salmon, and my wife put the dill on it, dill sauce, the butter, and we picked this great bottle of Pinot. Amazing what the flavors, you just sip each one with somebody think, that's interesting, would you use Chardonnay? Well, not with this, it worked differently. The other thing is where you eat. I can think about some of the places we've been lucky to eat. One year we were in Australia when my daughter's at a swim meet, and we were eating outside on the Circle K, right by the Opera House in Sydney. We're watching the boats come and go. The weather was about 75 degrees out there, and we were having some fabulous food. I couldn't remember what I was eating, but it was a great time to think about being with my family and enjoying that time together. So that's part of the experience because, again, we're breaking that bread together. Again, when you're thinking about food, what is it that makes it good for you? Enjoy the food. Take the time and don't rush and chow down, but take the time to enjoy your food. And think about that because that ties also anchors those memories of who you're with, where you are, and how good it is to be alive and to be able to